Hey, David Stewart here. I was preparing to change some strings on my flamenco guitar, and I thought I would take a minute to answer a couple of questions or a category of questions that I've been getting on the site recently. And a lot of these questions came off a video I did, what's the difference between a classical guitar and a flamenco guitar, which has sparked its own set of debate, and I'll make a follow-up video to that, talking about some different opinions than mine on what constitutes a flamenco guitar. But anyway, the question that I got is from a couple people. Do you have to use flamenco strings on a flamenco guitar? And what the question is in reference to is there'll be packs of strings floating about that say flamenco on them. They're marketed towards flamenco players. And do I need to use those on my flamenco guitar? And the answer is no. You can use whatever strings you want on your flamenco guitar. There's no fundamental or tonal difference really between strings that are marketed as flamenco strings and strings that are marketed as classical guitar strings. They have the same materials. The trebles are the same nylon material. The basses are silk and steel or silver, sometimes silver-plated steel. So the materials aren't different. The tone might be different than certain manufacturer. One manufacturer might have a different tone than another manufacturer, and the flamenco strings might have a different tone, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be the tone that you want to use. So you could use whatever strings you want on your flamenco guitar. You do not have to use flamenco strings. You can use flamenco strings on your classical guitar too. There's nothing to say you can't do that. My advice is use whatever strings make sense to you, and whatever strings give you the tone that you want and have the feel on both hands that you really want. It doesn't matter what their label is. If they happen to be flamenco strings that you use, that's great. If they're not flamenco strings, that's okay too. I actually don't use flamenco strings on my flamenco guitar. I use strings that are really marketed towards classical guitar. Actually, these are them. These are the ones I'm going to put on. These are Savers Alliance HT Classics. I don't have an endorsement deal or anything with them. They're just the strings I use. I always keep coming back to them every time I try out new stuff. So I use these on my classical guitar and my flamenco guitar. One of the advantages to that is that the guitars feel fairly similar, especially on the left hand. The guitars tend to share the same set of strings, which means I only have to buy one kind of string at a time. I don't have to buy a bunch of different, I have to flamenco and classical set. And what if I run out of flamenco strings and I need to, So it's all just one kind, and I can keep a stockpile of these without any problems. And the tone works for both guitars really, really well. It's a nice bright tone. I like bright tones because I can always dial off the tone if I want to. For those of you who haven't seen my tone video, a lot of different ways you can get different tones on a flamenco guitar. You can get a dark tone. You do not have to have a classical guitar to get a dark tone either. So, in summary, you can use whatever strings you want on whatever guitar you want, as long as they're nylon strings. In fact, I recommend you experiment with a couple different sets and find the ones that you really, really like, and just use those. Don't worry if they're flamenco marketed strings or not. And you can also try flamenco strings on your classical. You might end up really liking the tone. So that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on Twitter as @DavidStewart, or David V. Stewart, @DavidVStewart. And I'll have links for Facebook and Google Plus and all that kind of stuff. You can also visit my website, dvspress.com or davidvstewart.com. Both of those will work. And have a great day.